right, let's get this thing started. Good morning, my name is Kevin Phillips. I'm actually the Finance and Accounting Officer here at Paradise Irrigation District. I'm your substitute tour guide for today. George Barber, the general manager, has a family emergency, so he will not be making it today. But I think we'll be in good hands with myself, with Steve, and with Jim, who are going to be giving us, me and Keith will be doing the presentation together, and then Jim's going to give a quick tour of the new preparation area for all of us. I don't know if the mic is. I'll try to project my voice a little better. Two things that I want to mention before we start the presentation is that last night we had a presentation from our community relations firm that has established a new community relations plan for PID. And the slogan they came up with was "Our Water, Our Future." And this presentation talks about a lot of the past of PID, but I want you to all keep in mind that what we today are doing is bringing PID into the future. You've heard a lot about some of the capital expenses we've done, some of the new projects that we're doing, the wetlands, all these different things that have come about is to bring our water into the future. The other thing is that Paradise Irrigation District is very, it's not like the cow water down at the bottom of the hill, or even Delaware water up at the top of the hill. We have surface water, and we were established that way just in our, how it was originally established. They put up some dams and they got some surface water. That makes us very kind of unique in a way than any other districts out there. So trying to compare us to other districts that are locally is pretty difficult. So there's a lot of unique things that we as Paradise Irrigation District have, which is some of the stuff is very positive, but some of the other stuff makes it very challenging to run and to constantly make sure that we're getting the best quality water at the most affordable price. So I just wanted to kind of mention those two things and we'll start our presentation. So we are a local government. We're a special district of the state of California. You are, as members of Paradise Irrigation District, you guys elect board members to represent you. And you are represented by 5 board members, and each board member must live in the district they represent. So they have to be a resident of that district or that area to represent that area, but they're elected as at large. So just because Ken Hunt might live up at the top of the district doesn't mean that everybody doesn't vote for Ken Hunt, but he has to be a resident of that district. And we have a few board members with us today, which is Larry Duncan in the back here, and Doug Flesher, our newest board member, over here. This is our org chart, so our organization chart. We currently have 44 employees of Paradise Irrigation District, and we've actually went through a succession planning process for the last 5 years of getting some of the people that had just tons and tons of experience that were management of different departments, and getting new people in there with also trying to transfer that knowledge over to those new people coming in. The people that left in the last couple of years, they had an average of about 35 years of experience in their department. So that's just a ton of knowledge that we try to make sure that there was a smooth transition to the new people that are coming about. But also I'd like to point out is at the top of our org chart is the customers of PID. You as customers are the driving force of what Paradise Irrigation District does and will do into the future. So we just want to make sure that you guys understand that. Here's our system statistics. We have over 10,000 active meters in service. That means that they're on and water's running through them. We also have approximately 400 sealed meters, meaning that you have, as a customer, has an opportunity to actually turn the meter off and they pay a lower service charge. There's still a charge associated with that, but there's no water running through that meter. So our water treatment plant, which you get a tour of today, was went online in 1995 and has a rated capacity of 22.8 million gallons per day. Our average usage on a normal day is
Right around
9 million gallons. So we still have some availability in there and growing. But we also, doing some of the other projects has also loosened up some of the availability in that water treatment plant too. We have 9 million gallons of treated storage within the district, 169 miles of distribution main lines. 90% of the water that is sent to the customers is gravity fed. So only 10% of that water is actually pumped uphill. Everything else is run downhill. And we actually, which you'll get a tour of today, we have a pressure regulator, pressure brakes within the system to make sure that that water is not running so fast that when you turn on the faucet, it blows your faucet off. And we serve about 11,500 acres. This is kind of the history of PID. The first district meeting was held March 21st, 1916. The election was in 1917 for Magalia Dam bonds. So the people of Paradise decided that they wanted to have water up here. And so what they decided to do was go out and pass a bond to build Magalia Dam. And that passed 244 to 24, so there was less than 300 voting members in Paradise at that time. Magalia Dam was built in 1918, and you can see at the bottom here, you can see at the bottom here, what they did is they actually just ran dirt off of the hill and threw a flume and then shot it down onto the dam. And so that dirt just came down and they just kind of compacted it and compacted it and compacted it. And it wasn't probably the best construction method, but it worked for them at that time. And then the Depression hit, and I'll step one back. In the 1920s and 30s, there was actually 60% of water lost within the district. So only 40% of the water that they were producing out of that reservoir was actually getting to its place of use. In the 1930s, 60% of the land within the PID district was owned by PID due to the fact that the people that own the land could not pay their bills. So we, as a district, have the opportunity to lien properties for non-paid water. We still have that opportunity today. And so if you don't pay your bill and if it was on for so long, we can actually take your bill and put it on your property taxes and we'll get paid one way or another. And they still have that. They had that opportunity back in the day, but what they did is they went in and just repossessed your land. So at one point, PID owned 60% of all of Paradise. And through the Great Depression, after the Great Depression, PID as a board decided that they weren't in the business of owning land. This was not what they wanted to do. And so they actually gave back a lot of the land, or sold back the land to the original owners, because the owners never left the property. They just didn't have ownership of the property. So they actually gave back the land for probably 50 cents on the dollar. So what really affected the people were the people that actually paid their bills throughout that time kind of got the short end of the stick. Yeah. But we still have pieces of land throughout Paradise that we still own. We have no idea why we even own this piece of land, but we owned it because at one point in time that property, that bill was not paid. We took it back and we just have never gotten rid of it. So in 1934 we had meters installation began. Steel pipe installation began in the 1940s, and we still have a lot of steel pipe throughout the district, and that's one of our main problems is trying to replace all of that steel pipe, and Keith can talk about that later on. In 1956, Paradise Dam was constructed, and then in 1976, the dam was actually raised. This top picture here is a picture of Paradise Dam being constructed in 1956. So in 1917, the bond issue for the Magalia Dam was $350,000. And in 1955, the people of Paradise passed a $1.5 million bond to build Paradise Dam. That's how important water was to the people here on the
What's the
ridge.
difference between the Magalia Dam and the
Magalia is the reservoir that you see as you're going up to Magalia. And Paradise Lake is above that. You have to go up Kootalink about 2 or 3 miles, and then it's in Paradise Lake is up there. And if after you're here, we have aerial views of both of Paradise and Magalia. So as PID, we actually have 2 reservoirs that we're holding water. So in today's terms, if the people of Paradise decided to pass a bond based on the same property values that these people were passing bonds that were associated with the water, it would cost, well, that's the tax assessment in PID boundaries is $661 million, and we assume a 4% interest rate at a 30-year term. Our annual equivalent would be passing a bond of almost $38 million. That's how important it was for people of Paradise to have water. So here's our operational expense by department. We have 5 departments. We have the transmission and distribution, which is the largest department because that's basically the largest capital expenses of the district. That means all the pipes, meters, everything that goes to get that water to that residence is part of the transmission and distribution. They also do all their own construction. They're out there in the trenches, digging up pipes, fixing leaks, replacing pipes. We have customer service. That's probably what you guys deal with most often. It's the people in the front. They handle all your complaints and all of what the good stuff you say about us. They're trying to take it. No, we try not to do that. And then we have administration, which that would include myself with George and all of the people that kind of keep the wheels a turning. Source of supply. That's all of the money that goes into maintaining the dams, maintaining those water sources that we have up there. We have security and recreation. Paradise Lake has recreation available to anybody. It's open to the public. And there's no swimming in it, and there's no gas motors. But the one thing that has been really, really popular is the kayaking up there. It's a beautiful lake to kayak. There's lots and lots of wildlife to see, and you don't have to deal with the motorboats slamming by going 50 miles an hour. So lots of fishing that goes on up there, and we put on a lot of, there's events that go on up there too. So that's the security and recreation, and then we have the water treatment, which you'll see today is getting that water clean for us to drink. Here's our 2013 budgeted finances. As everybody knows, we went through a rate increase the last 3, it's actually the last 2 years. There'll be one more rate increase as of January 1st. This was very important to Paradise Irrigation District to keep the wheels rolling and to keep us going into the future. Last year, if you look at that blue line at the bottom, that means basically after you pay all your expenses that you have to pay, what do you have left over to do any of your capital expenses? Last year that was at $200,000. Now we're getting to a point where we're getting a little bit more reserves is what we call them, but a little bit more money in the coffers to make sure that if something catastrophic happens, we have the availability of money to go out and fix it, but also we have the availability to make sure that we're getting things maintained correctly and that we're moving PID into the future. So our total revenue is $7.6 million, and our total operating expenses, as I like to call them, is $7.1 million. So that leaves that $557,000 this year that we can either spend into capital projects or we can save into capital projects. We're different than the town of Paradise or the school district here is that we're funded almost 100% by fees. We're not funded by the state of California. We're not funded by tax revenues. that the property tax revenues that we're trying to collect. And we also, if we don't spend it, it doesn't mean we don't lose it. A lot of governments out there, if you don't spend it, you're not going to get funded for it next year because they say, well, you don't need it. We're not that way. We are a saving district. We are a district that looks into the future that says, okay, we need to replace this in 20 years. We better start saving today. So well, that's why the way that we're set up is you're not seeing it going, oh, we're zero. We're coming to a zero at the end of the year. We don't want that because that means we have nothing left to replace these assets that you guys rely on to make sure that you have water to your house. We've had really good success with grants in the past. They're becoming much harder to get with the state of California and the crunches that come down. Most of the time the grants go to the people that aren't doing things good. They're the ones that are having to boil their water, that have 400 customers and they need to replace a $1 million asset. You know, you can't, there's no way that those customers could pay for it. But in the past, we've been able to get successful when the state of California was a little bit leaner. And we were able to actually capture $4 million of grants. We recently brought on a consultant that is an expert in grants, and she's out there looking and banging the concrete. She has a little more into some of the departments that are giving these grants away. And so we're hoping that we're a little more successful into the future of getting these grants. And you know, what we like to say is bringing our tax dollars back to the rich. And so we're constantly looking for it, but they're becoming harder and harder to get. And this is our unaccounted water, and I'm going to let Keith take over from here because I think he has a really good understanding of why our unaccounted water went from the peak down to the bottom.
Am I switching slides here, Kevin?
Just hit the
Down.
just hit the like space key.
Okay.
Or
Good
the
morning.
enter key.
Good morning. I'm Keith O'Brien. I've worked here at the district for about 21 years. Unaccounted for water. We've had, as you saw, the mileage of pipe in this town can be mind-boggling. There's a lot of miles of pipe. We still have quite a few miles. I believe it's in the 60-mile range of steel water mains. The steel that was put in once upon a time has no inner coating. It has a very light tar dip coating on the outside. Because we have two things going on. We have acidic soils and that attack the outside of that pipe. And then of course you have rust issues that affect the inside, which between the two create leaks and water loss through those. We started using a product, PVC, called C900 quite a few years ago to replace the steel mains with. They could possibly hold them indefinitely. They're smooth inner surface, being the PVC, carbuncles, tubercles, rust. There's things that will not attach to that because it's plastic and it's a much stronger pipe. Therefore, when we have a section and we rate these on, we keep a count and list of the leaks that we have in a year to see where our problem areas are. And when we have a particular part in town or a section of steel main that's really given us a lot of grief, that moves to the top of the priority list as a main that we need to replace. If you remember, it's been 6 years ago, we had a pipeline, and I'll just use, because I can't give you all, but this is a good representation of this. Billy Road, from Park Road over to Pence Road, that pipe was replaced 6 years ago. When the construction crew that we hired that was contracted to do that, they found a couple leaks on that stretch of Billy Road off that old steel main that was flowing straight down into the ground, where a lot of our lost water was from Billy Road. And I don't know what the percentage is right off the top of my head, but a lot of our lost water came just from that one section of pipeline. Okay, it all adds up. you know, and we see people that are losing a half a gallon of water a minute, and there's people or mains that are losing hundreds and sometimes thousands of gallons in a day, depending. So the pipeline replacement program is very valuable and critical because it needs to be done to try to save as much of that water as we can. We go through a lot of pains to gather it, treat it, and get it down into these pipes. We don't want to lose it. You're always going to have a little bit of loss because it takes a long time to get those pipes repaired and replaced. But when you have to go out to a street once a week or once every couple of weeks for 6, 8 months, maybe a year, and we keep putting these, we call them band-aids, and they're an outer pipe, a band-aid to stop that water from leaking. Pretty soon it's not cost effective to keep going out there and repairing them. We need to just get them replaced. We have some steel transmission mains called CML. They're concrete mortar lined on the inside with a very heavy tar on the outside, for what I just explained. That helps cover the outside, and that concrete mortar on the inside keeps a lot of things from sticking to it, attaching to it, or from rust building up to eat through it. That was put in the late 60s, and so far it's holding up very well. We don't go out of our way to replace that. We pretty much, it's kind of, in that case, it's almost if it's not broke, don't fix it. These old steel mains, yeah, they're a constant problem. We have used a contractor. We've done leak detection projects the last 2 or 3 years running, where we have an outfit comes down, and it's kind of like a stethoscope at the doctor's office listening to your heart or your lungs. They put equipment in certain places, meters, fire hydrants, outlets that are above the ground and accessible, and they listen for water movement and water leaving the pipes. And they are very accurate. It still amazes me that when that technician goes out and he uses his equipment and he says, right there, and he puts an X down, and he says, you have a leak here, and I'm guessing that it is 5 gallons a minute or 7 gallons a minute or whatever. It is scary how right on the money they are and have been for the last 2 or 3 years.
Without a witching stick.
Yes, it's all audio and equipment.
It's high-tech witching.
It's high-tech witching. That, we use that outfit to try to take care of some of leaks, period, but some of the bigger problems that have not yet surfaced. Okay, you've all seen in your yards or driving down the road, water boiling and running down the road, you know, there's a water leak of some sort. Could be your own, could be our problem. Some of these other leaks, like Billy Road, where they're blowing straight down, and I can tell you, and I do not want to bore you with too many details, you can lose thousands and thousands of gallons of water at your home through a main, through a small service line that go into the ground. As dry as it is right now, the ground just soaks it up like a sponge, and it takes a long time sometimes for those to surface, and you never even realize you have a problem. Using this outfit helps us just stay ahead of the game a little more, and it gives us some really good information on maybe we have problems on some places that we didn't think we had any problems. We put all that together to find out where the biggest issues are. The steel service lines, the steel mains, those are our primary replacement program. The service lines from the main to your homes, to your meters, were done for a while until it got real expensive with copper. Now we use a product called polyethylene. It's plastic tubing, no corrosion. There's a lot of benefits to that. It's very easy to work with. The fittings are such that it is a lot simpler to put together for the crews to get from that main to that meter to your house. There's constant changes and things that come up, as you all know, technologies and whatnot. Oh, I can't believe we used to use this. Now we have this product. And it's all about future savings. It's about future looking down the road. We probably won't, when I said that the plastic C900, some of this stuff indefinitely, nobody knows for sure just how long it's going to last. It's hard to put a number on it. That's why I say indefinitely, because some of these products, unless you hit it with a backhoe, it's going to last a lot longer than some of the products that they used to use. The CML, the concrete waterline pipes, were mainly used as transmission mains to get bigger water in bigger pipes throughout this district, and at the same time, the tanks that you see around town were installed, are storage tanks. Like you see, most of you have probably seen it across on Manley Road below the cemetery. We have tanks like that in certain areas. A lot of those were put in with that larger main at the time. And like I said, it is steel, but because of the way it was constructed and because of the linings, it's holding up a lot better. And there's no real need at the moment to just go replacing it because it's not giving us those kind of headaches as we go. Probably the biggest was the Billy Road area for our water loss and being able to recoup after we put that main in. Our meter program that just went through in the last couple of years, upgrading our meters and our AMR system for reading our meters, leak detection that's available to us through the office, letting customers know that, hey, you've got an issue here. We just have noticed in a 24-hour period or a certain period of time, you've got water moving. That doesn't, it's not necessarily unaccounted for because we know because it went through the meter, but we don't want to see anybody spend any more money or waste money on water that they need to either. So that has been, it's kept us hopping for sure. It's a busy time because now we just have one more tool to help you and us conserve and save that water that we work so hard to gather, clean, and get to use. Does anybody? Question? Yes.
I see a lot of sprinkler running on a rain case often. Got them there, got the whole like pulse factor too.
Yes. That is true. When we see that done in an excessive amount, we will contact people, give them a heads up. Some people, they know how fall can be in Paradise. Right now, today, I know you'd have to water, but in a couple of days it might be 100 degrees. So they're a little hesitant on their sprinkler systems. But yes, it's another form of water conservation or there a lack of.
Maybe the rain
for sure.
should serve that $5.
Pardon?
Put rain sensor, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
On the same subject, I noticed we haven't had much rainfall for the past 2 or 3 years, and there's beginning to be a little announcement about that in the newspapers once in a while, but I've never seen the word drought. I think we're headed into a drought, if we're not in one already, which we probably are. And are you thinking of warning people to start using less water because we don't have it?
Well, good word.
Paradise Irrigation District is in a constant drought, is what we like to call it. It's because we're not, again, we're unusual. We're not like the rest of the state of California or even Lake Oroville down here, which is a state water project. We have a certain amount of capacity that we can hold. That's it. We can get as much rain as we want, and but it just flows over the top and comes down. In the last couple of years, we've actually been lucky enough to actually get enough storage that we're at full capacity in those reservoirs. But the problem with that is that our reservoirs aren't enormous. They don't hold a ton of water for a long carryover period, and that's why we call it a continuous drought, because if we get into a few dry years, our capacity could be eliminated, and then we're in really dire straits. So we are constantly preaching to our community of conservation and drought-tolerant plants and drought, just having drought in their mind, because it doesn't matter if we're full this year. If we get 2 dry years, we're going to be in really bad shape. Where other reservoirs or other districts might have the capacity to kind of outlast those drier years and maybe not have those cutbacks like we would have to have. So we are constantly preaching conservation and basically that we're always think of us as we're two dry years away from a drought. And a drought would be really, really difficult for PID because it's just hard to recover from that. It's something that once you let your lawn die, if that's what you would have to do, and we had to cut back to that point, how long is it going to be until huge producer. No, it's not a huge producer. We're very, very reliant on surface water.
If we're pushing conservation, why is PID or your Water Conservation Committee now not pushing gray water? Because I think it's a shame that we use drinking water to flush our toilets.
And that's out of my expertise, to be honest. I know it's been brought up, and I would probably have to kind of refer back to somebody who has a better understanding.
Well, it's been very successful in other communities,
Yeah,
so.
and I know that there's hurdles that you have to go through. One of the things I would assume is that we don't have a sewer system within the community, so everything's kind of running through the septics. But to be honest, it's out of my expertise, so I'm not sure why we're.
Where gray water works great is in newer construction, because you can design the whole system around the gray water system. In these houses here, I mean, there's almost zero growth in Paradise. The amount of building this year, I mean, Jim might be able to tell you, how many building permits the town probably issued? Maybe a handful.
Yeah, new construction definitely.
So to go into your houses and retrofit your houses so you could separate your gray water and your black water, and then develop a whole other system to hold that gray water, then pump that gray water, is extremely expensive, and the payback would be just enormous amounts of years down the road.
Not what I've heard, but I'm not the expert.
So there are places where they build it in, is that what you're saying?
Some of these places that are playing with gray water, yeah, they're building it into the home to begin with.
Well, that's good to know.
Now, I don't know that there's any up here that I know of, no.
I know that there are some illegally up here, but.
So this is our chart. In 1995, we went through a major upgrade of trying to go out and replace pipes. And the steel pipe, which is the big blue line there, is our problem pipes. And the blue line, we had 91 miles in 1995, and you can see that we've done quite a bit of work to reduce that. We want that to go, that red line to go to 0, and we want the bottom here, this one, to replace all of that. That's that C900 pipe. That's the plastic pipe that we put in today. So we've done a lot, but we still have a lot to go. So that's what our transmission distribution, Keith and his crews are out there doing. Sometimes for the big ones, we'll get contractors in there because they're just a little more efficient getting through those big ones. But we're doing our best to get rid of those problem points. Clark Road property acquisition, which that's our new corporation yard up here. This is where our existing corporation yard is. It's off of Black Olive up here. It's a building, I think, that was built in what, maybe the 30s, 40s. It's had a lot of problems, leaky roofs, and it's just was leaky pipes. I'm sure there's leaky pipes.
We take care of those.
But it's had its use, and I think it's time to retire it. But so what we did was we found this piece of property over here that we felt was a good location for the corporation, or being that it's centrally located within the district, and it gave us enough room to be able to put all of our equipment and inventory and everything up there. Here's the cost associated with that. So the left side credits are the good that we receive, and the other side is the cost, which I won't call it that, but it's what's costing us to do that. That includes this building here. So what we did was we originally purchased that property thinking that we were going to put a corporation up there, and then eventually we were going to put the administration yard or the administration office up there. And we had some estimates, and it was quite a, like any type of construction, it's expensive. It's expensive to build something new. So we had that, and we were going to put a corporation yard up there, and then we got worried about this building here. And it just made complete sense that we could buy an existing building that had all of the facilities that we would need to grow into, and it was right next to our new corporation yard. That saved us quite a bit of money, because the estimate for building a brand new administration building at that time was about $1.5 million. If we were talking go down 5-10 years, everything goes up, right? So we're talking 2 million, I don't know what the end of thing was. But we were able to purchase this building for $700,000. We put $200,000 of improvements, including this place that you're sitting into right now. So we were actually able to get this for $900,000. We kept our old building and we put it on the market and we actually sold it. Shocking in this market. So we sold that building for $375,000. We traded our old corporation yard to the owner of this property here. So he sold this property here for $750,000, but he took our old property and gave us a credit of $300,000. So the net cost associated with that one was $450,000. And then, being that we bought this building, what we were going to do is, on the frontage of Clark Road was going to be our new administration building. Well, now that opens up that piece of property, that Clark Road frontage, to eventually, when the board's ready to do that, to sell that property for maybe some commercial real estate, whatever, whoever wants to buy it for whatever they want to do with it. And we kind of put it, there's 2 parcels up there, and so we put an estimate of $100,000. So the net cost associated with the full relocation was about $2.7 million is what we're estimating for that. And that is to bring PID again into the future, and we feel like that's given us plenty of space, beautiful buildings up there that's going to maybe last for as long as I can look out to the future. This building here will last as long as I can look out to the future also for us. So I feel it's well money spent to get us again into the future. The Magalia Reservoir Bypass Pipeline, this was done almost 6 years ago. And what it is I'll use my arrow here, is up above here, up above there is Paradise Lake. And Paradise Lake, they release water out of Paradise Lake, and it runs down this creek into Magalia Reservoir, which this is Magalia Reservoir is what we're looking at here. And then what we did was we would have to take the water right here and pump it out of the reservoir into our treatment facility. And that costs quite a bit of money of electricity to pump that water up and out, and that was the only way we could get water into our treatment facility. It was one way. Pump it out of that reservoir and put it into our treatment plant. So about 6 years ago, what they did was they actually put kind of a dam in the creek in between the 2 reservoirs and ran a pipe out of that little dam and ran the pipe all the way down the shoreline of this reservoir. And that then ran directly into the treatment plant. That water runs through.
What is the size of the pipe?
36 inch. That water is gravity fed. There's no electricity that is required to get that water from our reservoir into the treatment plant. So there was. And because the water wasn't just sitting in a reservoir for a certain amount of time, it improved quality of water. It allowed us, if we ever needed to replace this dam, which we eventually are going to need to, it allowed us to still get water into the treatment plant. It gives us an annual savings of $100,000 a year in electricity costs. But the most important thing is, and you know that to get to Magalia, you have to go over the top of this dam, is what if somebody crashed into that reservoir? The tanker comes across, goes right into the reservoir, Paradise is out of water. There's no way to get water to Paradise, because that was the only way that we got water into the treatment plant. Now, if that happens, obviously it's a disaster, but we still have the availability to pull water and get it into the treatment plant. I might not even be able to look on the radar on the water. So future major projects, again, taking PID into the future. Drought supply, like I said, we're always in a drought. We're out there looking constantly, looking for water, that if we had dry years, that water would still be there, and we could still give everybody their need that they would want, and we wouldn't feel a blip in the radar. So we're constantly looking for droughts. We're in talks with PG&E to see if they have available water that we might be able to get to, and always looking at different partnerships with other water districts on the ridge So we're constantly looking for drought supplies. Processed water recycle project, you'll hear this a lot. This is a project that is being mandated by the state of California based on how we treat our water. So what we do is we treat our water, but when you're taking bad stuff out, it's got to go somewhere. So what we do is we take that bad stuff out and we take it to these ponds above the Magalia Reservoir, and we have a settlement process. So the bad stuff settles out, the good water trickles back into the reservoir, and we just recycle the water that way. The state of California does not like that because you're taking stuff that might have bad stuff in it and putting it back into a waterway. And so they are requiring us to change our process. And that is not a simple thing. It's very, very expensive. And so we have gone through many iterations of processes, and we have seen many figures, numbers, and there's wetlands that you've heard about. That's what's associated with this also. And so that will be something that as PID customers you will hear about, see, and it'll be something that we have, it's a mandated thing. We have to do it. We have no other choice. So, water rights extensions. We have water rights associated with both the reservoirs. Those are, again, regulated by the state of California. The state of California is now making us prove that the amount of water we have the right to, we really need. And so to prove that, you have to do studies, you have to do environmental impact reports based on how that water would be used if you were to use all that water, and what your plan is on how to use the water that you have the right to. And so again, it's another study that we're doing, and it's an ongoing process. We're right in the middle of it right now, and it's another thing that's just regulated by the state. We are also looking into a 3-foot bladder dam. So I don't know if anybody's been down to 1 mile at Chico, but they put in an inflatable dam basically, and they pump air into it and it rises up, and when they don't want to use it anymore, they just deflate it and the water goes right over the top. That's what a bladder dam kind of in the simple terms is. And so what we're looking into is putting in a 3-foot bladder dam on the top of Magalia Reservoir, or Paradise Lake. And that would give us approximately 720 more acre feet of water of storage that we would be able to store in that reservoir. So that's something that we're also looking into. And it's much less expensive than trying to raise the dam, trying to put in a bigger dam or anything like that. It's a much more cost-effective manner. New dam at Magalia Reservoir. Well, that's not a cheap one. That one is going to be very, very expensive. And it's something that in the future, looking out, that's something that's going to need to be done. It's the dam that was put in with mud back in 1916. And at one time they actually drilled through the dam and came back out, and the dam's still wet in the middle. So it's never really dried completely. So here's our water supply totals. Just at the bottom is what we'll focus on, is our average runoff produced is about 16,000 acre feet. Yeah, 16,000 acre feet a year. The driest year that we've had in our last 100 year, or how long they've been calculating this data, was 1,700 acre feet. So that's quite a difference. That's quite a dry year. And then multiple dry years, this is where we'd be really in trouble, is we had 5,300 acre feet a year. And what this is up here is a normal water year projected supply and demand comparison. So what you're seeing is that 2015, we have, our demands are 7,441. But you'll see that it drops down to 6,931. That's because the state of California mandates you to do that. There's a thing called 20 by 2020. Means you must reduce your consumption by 20% by 2020, or you're going to be in trouble. I'm not sure what the the bad thing that you're gonna get done to you, but it's a mandate. It's saying you must do this or else. And so what we did is we said, okay, we'll do this, and we'll show this in our projection. But then this here is basically the increase in demand through population growth or anything like that. And so it's just showing that as we grow, we're going to need water to grow, basically, or to survive. I mean, that's just what it is, and it's just it's a necessary need for the ridge. So this is a single dry year, and what it would do to us with those same projections that we just showed. So water used, and just saying that, okay, we're just using water normal, and we had a single dry year. In 2030, we'd have 872 acre feet left of storage. That's like a puddle. We would have no water left.
Do you have any figures what the low point was in the mid-70s?
Yeah, we do, and I don't have them with me, but we have graphs that we show, and that I know that in the 70s it was like this. I mean, it was a tremendous amount of storage that we were really down. That's it. One thing I want to show you too is we talked about the automated metering system. This is it. This is what's installed, and this plugs into your meter. So you actually still have a meter in the ground. You just have this little device here that's shooting out your reads and telling us in the office what's going on. So the meters are still the same meter. It's just this that we went through and replaced.
Is this something that we just got?
This has been installed for 2 years? Yeah.
And those are on our meters.
Those are on your meter. So if you go out to look at your meter, you'll see this.
Yeah.
That's all you'll see. But that's what's underneath it. So if you...
You may find them in your meter box or just outside of your meter box in a smaller box.
Yeah, this is the thing that's transporting your read to us. But your meter's still a meter. It's still the same device that was in the ground before. It's a new one, but it's the same mechanics and same everything. But this is what's
The
here.
box that Kevin has in his hand, the rectangle box, you'll see some of those around town on street signs on the top. Maybe at the corner of your street and another where there's an intersection, you'll see that. We are not watching you. Because without some people were very certain that we were spying on their picnics on Sundays. We are not doing that.
May I say something?
Yes.
The last bill that we received and we put all this water, the consumed water that we had,
Yeah.
and the level,
Yeah.
when we have a leak, it was like this, we fix it, and then it's normal.
That's
So
correct.
that is good.
That's, yeah. And again, we've gone through a lot of transition in the office. We actually got a brand new billing system. But also what you have seen is a brand new bill itself according with that billing system. So we went with a full page bill. There's still a little quirks here and there. We're always open to suggestions if you think that, it'd be nicer to see it this way or this way or this way. So we're constantly kind of refining it based on customer feedback, and the customer service representatives are taking all that into consideration. So there has been a lot of transition. The one thing with these though is that if you did come in and you had a leak, we could actually, this thing gives us enough water data that we can tell you, oh, it's probably your sprinkler system. Oh, it's probably this or this. And it's very, very sophisticated data, and it's a great customer service tool that we
Mine is flush with the ground. I mean, my box is under.
and that's how you would see it. All you would see is this,
Yeah.
right on top, but I just wanted to show you the guts of it. So.
In other words, that little machine can tell us if we have a leak, and if you're reading it, is it electronic?
Yes,
Okay,
we don't go out and read it. It comes directly into the office
Oh, is that right?
every day.
So you can tell us, you notice if something odd is going on, if we have a leak that we don't know about.
That's correct.
And if you haven't heard from us, that's a good thing.
What it will tell you is that you have continuous use.
Uh-huh.
It'll tell you how much is flowing through the meter. So it doesn't necessarily tell you if you have a leak, but it may tell you if you left the hose
Yeah.
on because you have that continuous use. Also, with irrigation systems, because they're timed, it reads the time. So it can tell you, oh, your irrigation system came on, it went over here, ran this much water, and it stopped here, and then you still had continuous use, so maybe there is a leak in there. So,
What happens if I unplug that?
It gives us an alarm if this is unplugged. And so if you do open up your box and you see this, just make sure that your connector, you don't put yank on it and pull it off. Because there is, it's a little 3 thing in there, and sometimes they get bent or something.
You won't save water by it.
No. Because you're
the register's still.
You won't save money by disconnecting.
No. I don't know how you adjust this.
When you were talking about proving that we use the water that we have, when did that happen and why? Does it have anything to do with water, they're needing water for the staff?
So, say that one more time.
When you were talking about before about us having to prove how much water, is a study you have to do to prove how
The
much
water
water
rates
we need,
extension.
that we need it?
Water rates.
When and why?
Because the state of California, basically, what they do is they give you a water right, and until what they call it's perfected, so let's just throw out numbers, you have the availability to store 10,000 acre feet of water, but you only have built 7,000 acre feet of that storage available to you. The state of California is saying, well, you haven't completed what you said you were going to do. So it's still what they call as a permit. It's still a permit that's given to you, but you still have the availability of that 3,000 acre feet inside of your permit. And so what the state of California used to do is go, oh, every 25 years you have to renew that permit until it's completed. And then it would just be like, okay, 25 years, yeah, we're good to go. But that's not how it works anymore. Now, the state of California, they still regulate it, but now they want to know, well, why do you need that 3,000 more acre feet that you guys were given, back in the day? Why do you need to do that? You need to prove that to us through a study, and also you need to prove to us that if you were to do this project that would take that 3,000 acre feet more storage, then what's the impact on everything that you can look out into the future, the fish, the people, all of that. So that's what we're doing right now. So it's just based on kind of a magnitude of storage and all of that.
So the state thinks of the water in California belonging to everybody in the state, not that we live here and doesn't have water?
That's correct. It is. It's the state of California regulates all water.
How much does it cost for a customer to put in a brand new meter?
Okay, so there's 2 costs associated with that. There's a capacity fee cost, which means you're buying into the system, and that's approximately $4,500 for just a normal residential meter. And then there's the cost associated with putting the meter in, and that's just billed based on how much time it takes us to put it in and buying the meter. So
Which is roughly.
Roughly $2,500. It can go it can go either way depending on where the main is in relationship with the house. If it's a short side, long, but roughly $2,500.
What dam is used in Southern California, needs water? Do you know? What dam?
we don't have the availability to ship water to Southern California. So
Oh, darn.
Right. What dam is used? What is argued used when you want that? I'm just curious.
What dam?
You don't want to.
Yeah.
Around here, Shasta, Oregon.
Is it Shasta?
And Orville.
Sorry.
And Oregon, okay, I was close.
Yeah, Orville Dam is Orville actually is, that dam is the state of California's dam. And Shasta Dam is the federal government's dam. So those are actually state-owned reservoirs, where ours is owned by the people of PID. So,
Keith mentioned small boxes on the tops of stop signs at intersections. They do not belong to PID.
they do.
What do they do?
What they do is, this system is a leapfrog type system. Each meter has, let's just call that an antenna because it's basically what it is. The way that it's designed is when you go down the street, and let's say you have a dozen houses, 6 on each side of the street, the reeds leapfrog, they jump the reed from meter to meter. In some cases, we need a repeater, they call them. Some of them are called gateways, to where they need, it's a little further than everything else. That helps to draw those reeds to this point, and then it goes up and down the roads, and so on and so forth. And they're put in specific places to make sure that they can gather those and jump that reed from one place to another.
And the money you're saving from not having manpower to come out and read each meter, is that sort of a wash with the cost of these smart meters?
No, there was costs associated with that, but the smart meter system actually costs a lot more than what we were saving off of that. There was money associated with the payback on this was labor savings, but also water revenue actually increased because the meters that were on the ground were so old they weren't reading accurately. And a meter never reads high, it always reads low because it spins slower. And so as it goes, it never spins faster, it always spins slower. So by replacing all the meters, we felt like we were going to get more accurate reads, being that people that use the amount of water were actually going to get charged for that water. What we've seen though is conservation. People have actually stopped using as much water as they were because they saw their bill increases. So it's hard to quantify the payback of it because you have customers that are actually changing their habits than what they were before that, which is good. Yeah, it means that now we have more storage for drier years, drought. But it's hard to quantify that into a dollar cost type of thing.
You mentioned that you still have, I didn't know we had any at all, a deep well. Where is that well located in your system, in our
Yeah, it's
system?
just right down the street here at our D-tank reservoir behind McDonald's essentially.
Oh, is that right? And there's a well there.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
One last question, or two last questions, and we'll have to do it. Okay.
Could you explain the boundaries of the PID? Because I noticed going down Pence, they have a water system. Of course, I guess Magalia has their water system.
I think he would be the best to explain that.
Basically, Pence Road, Country Club Drive, where Country Club comes back into Pence Road. You know where Country Club comes in? Basically, right there is the split where PID ends and Del Oro starts.
Show the map.
Skyway, Pence and Skyway intersection, for the most part, really close to that intersection. Clark Road, Round Valley Ranch Road, on the way out of town before you get to the Paradise Airport. And Skyway, Crossroads, where the Skyway splits when you go to Chico and you have the crossroad in case you said, whoops, I forgot something and have to come back up. That is basically that and Neal Road at Wayland Road on your way down to the dump is the other one.
And Wagstaff, where it swings around, becomes Robertson, and it goes into Billy Road.
That's all in our district, yeah.
Was that a recent development, especially around Van Fossen Lane?
Well, Van Fossen was one of the more recent development areas. Yeah, there's a few small developments in there, but when you look at the ridge, Pence Road, Wagstaff, Roberts, like the outer extremities, for the most part, all those people are within our district. There's a couple exceptions where people have bought in the county and have driveways and access that go down into the canyon, but that's a handful, probably at best.
Recently, there were samples taken from the glacier on Mount Shasta, and they tested 1,000 times more aluminum than normal, and people are saying that it's coming from the chemtrails. And I'm curious to know if any sampling or testing has been done on Paradise Lake water or similar.
Bill?
Paradise Lake itself, no, we don't test for aluminum. We tested your drinking water just recently for aluminum samples because we do put aluminum into the water. That's one of our treatment chemicals we use. And we were just curious to see what kind of removal effect we had on that aluminum. There was no aluminum left in the treated water. All the aluminum that we're putting in, we pull back out. But as far as the lakes themselves being tested for aluminum, no, we don't. We do test our ponds for aluminum because that's one of the requirements of our NPDES permit.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to have is a tour of the corporation yard. We're probably not going to come back to this room after we're done with that, so you guys feel free to leave your stuff here because we will come back here at the end of the tour after lunch, and you can pick up your stuff if you would like. But Jim's going to give you a tour of that, then we're going to head around to the front, and there'll be a bus there that will pick everybody up and take them up to the treatment.
The water that we are allowed to put back into the drink is cleaner than the water that we buy at the foreign water.
They speak out of the 3 sentences, remember that?
Yeah, that's what my dad said.
We were actually several of us were working, they would do something in the park right there. Not necessarily the town, but perhaps something private would come in and put up a small restaurant or something in there to lend to the park. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really did think that was going to be parking.
It would be a really good spot. Yeah.
When they have those functions.
It's terrible to park. Yeah, it absolutely is just not enough.
I had the same kind of thoughts listening and watching.
Are you going to be our speaker?
Well, I'll talk about what I know about. So.
Good, we're going to get close to you so we can hear you.
Well, I don't have the benefit of a microphone, so I'll try to put it out there. Well, I wanted the superintendent position, and Keith wanted the superintendent position. We are wrestled for it, and he's the superintendent. I thought it was a good way to do it, but I thought I was going to beat him too.
You think you're going to learn anything, sir?
Yeah, so North Libby is right over there.
It's not far through. Yeah. Well, there's actually, if you come up here onto Billy Road, this is literally a 30-foot wide by, I believe, about a 300-foot long property. A house right on the end of it over here. And then the next property is actually a mobile home park.
Where is the driveway?
It starts on Billy Road behind Clark's Automotive right there. You can hardly see it. You turn in right there and literally 30 feet wide.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you do
Yes.
Well, who owns this property?
You know, I really don't know.
What did the auto club own? Was that owned?
They just owned, AAA just owned that property.
So this is the property he was talking about, the brought in.
The additional, right, after that.
I thought they meant for the flower company used to be.
And that's part of our property as well.
Oh, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
He's got 2 houses on there.
That's correct, and originally. You don't know that. I know that they have that's correct. Well, actually, 4. I'll explain that in just a minute.
Oh, is he going to be the talker?
Because this has taken a huge change. This property has taken a huge change in the way it looks. Not just with the building there, but exactly with what we've got to build is here to just get it flat. No, not quite yet.
That's a good little walk after all the sitting there listening to you guys. Eat.
Well, we should be operating out of here. So real quickly, and I don't think Kevin's going to give me a lot of time. He knows how I talk, but I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this property before we purchased it, but it has changed immensely just in the topography itself. You can't see it through this fence right here, but at one point there was literally a 34-foot vertical elevation drop from just about where we're standing to the northwest corner of this property. So this thing sloped down hugely, and there was a seasonal drainage that came through here that we had to take care of and continue on. In my opinion, we definitely changed it, but the seasonal drainage, really, we made a huge improvement with the seasonal drainage aspect of it. We pull a lot more water, cleaner. We built a beautiful cobble line drainage system right behind this fence right here. So what we're standing on here is fill from an approximately 11-foot vertical cut that you'll see when we walk around the building here. In order to put that in here, we have an underground stormwater retention pond that will actually walk over. There are 7 24-inch diameter plastic pipes lined with cobble rock and drain rock, approximately a 5-foot depth trench, about 2 feet under the surface of the ground right here. So all the stormwater that we collect that comes off the roofs, comes off the ground, ends up in these stormwater drain inlets. It ends up in that underground retention, and we hold that water. It stays right there. It doesn't go downstream, and it'll eventually evaporate. We have some vents out here, and so that's what happens to all the stormwater that comes off all of the hard surfaces that we have here.
Can you reuse it?
We do not reuse that water.
For like, washing vehicles and that sort of thing?
No, we do not. We are considering at some point at the very end of the building here, on the very east end of the building, we have a wash rack in there. At some point in the future, we may consider something like that. We have not done that yet. So.
And you have no immediate or long distance plan for that water?
At this point, no. I know that they've discussed it. That's above me, but I know we'll be
What's the
considering.
ideas for it?
You know, I truly don't know. I truly don't know how to answer that question. So now that we have basically the groundwork done, which we used, Franklin Construction and Anderson Brothers did all the site work here, all the major site work. We actually have a fuel island, so all of our fuel will be on site, so we no longer will have to go to the local gas station for unleaded fuel. We've already provided ourselves with diesel fuels. We have 2 different types of diesel fuels. That will be in a containment island right here where that hole is currently. We'll start work on that next week. We do have an emergency standby generator because we are geared to be an emergency operations center for Paradise. So we have a rather large, you can see it there, the big gray generator right there. PG&E is going to change their power system, and we're going to come into a transformer at the end of our parking lot down below here. We're going to go to 1 meter for this building and for that building over there. That generator right there is large enough to fully operate that building and this building if the need be. So again, that work will start. We've got the conduit and everything ready for that. We'll start the concrete work for that, and we'll be placing that in about probably 2 or 3 weeks. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at essentially with the site. We have Clark Road access, and all the way up to this building. Of course, it will be fenced in and gated in, as you can see. But there is access from Clark Road, so we will have additional parking where you've all parked down here. We'll have additional parking there. All the field operations parking will take place up here. So that's what we're looking like. That's what we're looking like on the site.
Are you going to have a 24-hour guard?
Yes, video surveillance.
Oh.
So we have a good video surveillance that we put in throughout the property, and we'll have a key, coded key entry for our big drive gate. So we do have security in mind, and we do have an alarm system in the building. So motion sensors and door brakes and that. So.
Are you going to remove that dead pine tree so it doesn't fall on your brand new?
Well,
We had the same thought.
we'd really like to do that.
Well, you didn't have any trouble removing everything else, so we're getting that
I'm not
out
quite
too.
sure of the arborist's opinion on those trees, but I think that that's going to happen. So,
You can bet on
just
it.
by sheer necessity. So I would really like to mention to you folks, I'm definitely not the finance guy, and Kevin knows better. I know what the budget looks like, and I do keep track of our expenses in here. I can tell you that we're doing quite well. Part of the reason that I think we're doing quite well is well, I shouldn't say every ounce of work that's gone in here, because we have used contractors for the large. The mass excavation, we had to use a contractor. We just weren't suited for that. The erection of the metal building, we used a local contractor for that because we weren't suited for that. And the building foundation and slab itself, that went through Slater and Son Contracting. They used a subcontractor for that. Everything else, all the concrete work, the sidewalk, the curb gutter, the woodwork that's in the front, the siding, the electrical, the plumbing, the water system, of course, everything has been done in-house. And I'm really proud of these guys because some of these guys had never ever touched concrete work in their life. And they came up here and they produced a pretty darn good product. Very functional, they work hard, they're trying really hard. And we have hired two local general contractors to help us out, to kind of guide us along. I'm actually an experienced carpenter, contractor for some years, so I can certainly lead the project, but it's nice to have two very experienced hands right here on site to help guide us through that. So I think what we could do now is if we'll just walk across, we can enter the building. It's a little bit dark in there. We don't have a lot of lighting and they just got the insulation in. So we can take a walk through. We'll end up on the back side over there and come out through the main warehouse, and I can explain a little bit about what's going on there. And then if we have any few quick questions after we see that, then we can address that, and then you guys can head off with Kevin again.
Okay, lead off with the
Yeah, they had direct orders. You'll see us coming and start down there.
You might ask me questions.
Jim, who's responsible for the storm sewer?
That would be the town of Paradise.
Okay. Would it be a problem to take all the runoff of your hard surface to the street in the storm sewer there?
I think that that's part of that. I know that the church down below here has a similar system that we have, and I think all the new, they're doing all new on-site, trying to keep all the storm water there, because I don't think that the storm water system has a capacity to deal with some of this. So there's a lot of hard surface right here, and we've just with the small rains that we've had since the root's been on this thing, a lot of water comes off of that. Again, I'm really proud of these guys that have been working on this, and I just think that we've produced an awfully good product here. Basic structure is that we have a steel or metal building provided by American Building, and Slater and Son did the erection. Then what they did is, of course, you can see that's just a strictly metal building over there. That's our mechanic, our fabrication welding shop, our warehouse, and we have a mechanic and warehouse office in that portion of it. So we kept that all metal. This over here, we had a metal structure, but we did all the infill with wood. Okay, so all the exterior walls here, all the interior walls are wood. And we've done some value engineering here, which is really nice because we do have a complete set of building plans. But we've gone through here as we've built this, and we've looked at things like the electrical system. They had a lot of fluorescent lighting in here. Some of that was under 220 volt power. We changed the lighting in our fluorescents to 277 volt lighting, which is considerably more efficient. And we did away with some of the fluorescent lighting, and we went to LED lighting. And we're literally able to put up to almost 1,000 LED lights on one 20 amp circuit. And so very, very nice. And they're done in can lights. We've done the whole canopy here with that. We lit it up one night. You definitely know that we're here. So we'll have a safe entry when we come in here at night. So we've done things like that all the way along, looking at ways to save money during the construction effort. And it's been really nice to be able to do that. So let's just walk through, and I'll just kind of explain what's going on here in these as we go through. I'm still trying to get used to the sound deadening value this insulation because we just got it in today. I walked in here yesterday. I walked in here yesterday. Usually you can just hear that long echo and hear everything that's going on here. And so,
Big difference.
a huge difference,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Big difference, yeah.
Are you going to use solar system?
We are planning for that. We've actually installed conduit and designed the building structure itself to allow for solar. Right now, we had intended on, if we are able to do that, to use the mechanics roof for solar panels. The exposure with the trees and everything might kind of limit us a little bit, but we have definitely planned for that. So we have conduit in place. We've also allowed an option for a hydroelectric generator just to augment some of our electrical needs that would actually work through one of our existing water lines coming down Clark Road. So it's not enough to run anything necessarily, just to augment, offset the power use that we have.
You just subbed out for it. You didn't put a generator on it.
Just put everything in place that we need to so far if we decide to go that route. So this we're just going to love this. We're going to be spoiled, and we really appreciate being able to have a building that we can function out of and function productively, efficiently. We have on the south end of the building, we have an IT room. This is where our main electrical will come in. All our computer communication system will come into the southwest corner of the building here. Just behind that wall right there is what our map and training room is. So we have actually a very well done mapping system for our distribution system. And so all of our mapping, computers, training and everything will take place inside that room back there. This is for large group training and a break area, so to speak. And something that we don't have in the other building is space. We'll have a small kitchen over here, very utilitarian, sheetrock, white paint,
Refrigerator and a
rubber base, and a microwave. So this is it. This is the great room. This was designed, we did a little value engineering in here too, because they had really just put a bunch of fluorescent lights in here to try to light this place up. We really wanted skylights in here for some natural lighting, because we were in the wildland fire urban interface. The skylights for this metal building were extremely expensive, and so we cut the skylight system out and we reduced the amount of fluorescent lights in here in order to accommodate good lighting with the LED lighting system. We built this soffit that goes around here, and we're able to put the can lights, recessed lighting in there, and switch them so that we're not using every single light in here just to light up the room. So we have AB switching on the lighting, and we have separate switching for anything that you see in the soffit. So the kitchen area is always switched by itself, so the lights won't always be on over there. So we've tried to really work that out. We're using Steve Wilson. He's helped us out for many, many years as our electrician, and he's really guided us through this whole project. So we walk down the hallway here.
Not only saves money, but it's all environmentally friendly.
On the right side of the hallway are the offices. Keith's office, of course, is the biggest office. Mine, of course, is the smallest, but that's okay. I'm usually in his office anyway. On the left-hand side, we have locker room and restrooms. Everything meets the ADA requirements. As we continue through here, we have a very, very important room, in my opinion, because all of our field workers get very, very muddy when they go out in the field and do a lot of this work. So this is our mud room. We have now a place that we can clean off outside, get all the mud off of us, hang our rain gear, hang our boots up, get dry, We don't have that now. What we have now is a hose out back, and that's where you take your rain gear off and try to clean yourself off. Now we're coming inside, so that's very nice.
Jim, the bus is here.
Yes.
So we'll have to wrap this up in the
Okay.
next minute or two.
Okay.
And then and everybody to go, if they need to go back in the boardroom briefly to pick up anything. Otherwise, we need to get to the front to
Okay.
get on the bus to go to
Perfect.
Jim.
We'll go right through and right out. In the back here is the meter shop. So all of the electronic automated meter readings, everything that functions for the testing and repair and all that is done in this room in here. So this is our meter shop. This is just a maintenance area where we would do things, any kind of maintenance. No, not oil changes. Actually maintenance like putting valve assemblies together, any kind of carpentry work or fabrication work we would need to do for projects out in the field. So we have an area in there that will house tools, and this area is just here so that we have some big open space we can pull trucks into and do some of our big valve building projects like that. So, and this, you can see the cut in the bank right there. That is literally where the top of that bank was the original grade of this. So we made a pretty large cut in here. We removed a lot of material and put it right down there. Something that we definitely don't have right now, and everything is stored outside in the elements, is a warehouse. So this section of this big building is our warehouse. So all of our products now that are stored outside will now be able to go inside.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
Building around here after this is all said and done, finalized. They'll do their own stuff, you know.
This is our mechanics. 2 bays are for the mechanics. He does all of our maintenance on all of our equipment, dump trucks, backhoes, loaders, all of our equipment. We do the minor servicing and minor repair, or servicing and minor repairs in-house, and that'll take place in here. And just on that section of this same room is our welding and fabrication shop, because we do an awful lot of steel work because we have a lot of steel mains left in the ground. So that's the building project in a nutshell.
What kind of insulation up here in the room for the inside of the building?
There's another one.
Down there too.
Percentage, I'm not sure. Let me figure that out. About 40%.
Still
If I looked at, there's about 58.5 miles left.
It's going to say gravel's going to blacktop it someday.
Well, like we did in the back there, we used the gray hard base and compacted that, put that chip rock